to the Healthcare Tech Lunchtime Talk. I am honored today to be with my friend Bret Packard, who has who spent an experience of 30 years over 30 countries, and he is a wealth of information in regards to wealth management and international banking. Bret is the founder and CEO of the Bret Packard Network, and he's worked in wealth management, as I said, for 30 plus years, including Citibank and Barclays. He has well-established track record of building highly engaged, productive teams that deliver a world-class experiences to their customers with efficient cost basis. Welcome to the show, Bret.
Thank you, Nadia. Honored to be here. I love the work. It's very, very unique and highly. I was really honored when you asked. So it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. For the audience, we would love to know if you're connecting with us live or if you are watching this on the replay, you can put in live or replay in the chat. We'll appreciate it. I'm always curious where people are connecting from. So if you can put your location, that would be fun to see where people are connecting from. So today's topic is very exciting. But before we get into that, Bret, if you are to introduce yourself to your audience, what would you say in your own words?
Yeah, I would say that I am here to hopefully people to be that's really the first message. And secondly, that I picked up in countries, as you mentioned, over three different cultures. Everything was different, Nadia, and I think that the and breadth of understanding of diversity and the benefits of diversity, along with and make sure that every diversity and inclusion is something I learned as a minority in other. I spent the first in the United States country, but I spent the majority of the rest of that third of the country where sitting at the table. I had the I think benefit really being the minority in the room where I was from, and that understand and might be like, and why it's so important, and that gave me in leadership. I to this another way in inclusive diversity. I know you and I didn't really plan to talk about when I introduced myself. I feel very strongly about I think performance and decile, but any of that, none of an inclusive mindset.
That is awesome. Yeah, I agree that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a very important aspect of team dynamics and building, strong culture within the team and a great retention strategy too, and great growth strategy for businesses. And we know that a successful business is a team effort. It's not an individual endeavor, and there's no way around it. So if you are or your business is to reach its full potential, every single person on your team need to be working on top of their games, and that means build high performing teams.
high performing teams, and so I learned 18 years, Nadia, what leadership, believe it or not, and I'm in the first 19 years of my career. But what I learned was in that I switched companies to a British. I learned that expert manager. I was really good at at the software, the leadership portion of that job. I realized quickly through in my career, realized what the difference was. Got that later if you want. But back to your, is that I had to spend a number of years in Africa, different parts of Africa, specifically 6 countries: Zambia, Europe, but also I'm in Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and a little bit of time in Kenya. One of the things that I learned, and I spent, and I'm in Pakistan, and there were 14 in my scope. And one of the examples I'd like to just finish the answer to your question on that using in Africa, where there's a lot of ability, a leader is responsible all of the people in the families. That includes everybody. So
exactly.
Let's say that an employee wrongdoing, and you have to live reality sometimes, right? A leader, a vision, sure that person gets another. You don't just fire somebody wrong.
No.
Okay, you need to get them another job. You also and show people how to teach people how to cook the things. How to do the different footage thrive. And that's how you start to. You mentioned back to your. So answer to your question, point you made on teamwork, but it without everybody working, but the leader, what to do, they have to show the way.
Exactly. And that it's a great point that you mentioned, that as a leader, you're not only responsible to show them how, but you feel responsible not only for their work, but also their families, because you need to weigh in that before taking major decisions, because it affects not only them, but their livelihoods, their families, and perhaps their communities too. And that takes me back to like every. Go ahead.
If I could, just the great resignation, mainly in the United States right now. If you just look at that, it was not COVID, in my opinion. It was just culture. So an example that happened during the COVID era: mothers seem to have daycare that need to put their child in daycare while there's a lockdown. And then employers and leaders did not address this, that's through, just to get through. And meeting for 8 o'clock at night for the boss, but it's not, because that's when they're putting their child. A lot of this, of this as well.
Yeah, and this is why. And that's why it's important to have diverse teams, and even in the leadership at the table where the decisions are made, to have different groups that represent different
Absolutely.
people, including women, because they are who else would be the best to give like advice or how to be inclusive and to bring the best of working mothers than mothers themselves. Not to discount any, but they have a unique perspective on what needs to be there for them to be their best and to bring the best of themselves and still balance what they have to do along for their
Yeah.
families
Huge
and whether they're elderly
responsibility.
parents.
Yep.
Exactly. And you mentioned the great resignation, and I think it ties back to leadership. Like when it comes to the great resignation or the quiet firing and what have you, we've all heard about that. It's all over the media nowadays. I think it's back to the roots, into the leadership of
Yeah.
the leaders to be inclusive, to have an environment that promotes, you know, psychological safety.
Yeah. That and psychological safety. It makes me to hear that it's missing in many. Uh, that is high teeth when you get up in the morning, right? Safety, ensuring employee, or using your terminology, right? Just be routine, and that's a big problem. So, and is where the account, and if the leaders, it's been split, where I call leaders are either relevant or and unfortunately, and they're leaders. If you're going to be a leader, you should be care of all of this stuff, right? If but there's that there be behavior ownership or the boards of CEO, and that's where it's to get a bit complicated because there's profits before should be people before. That's really where the cause of this problem is. They're putting profits. It's not good.
Before. Hmm. So, yeah, Brett, that takes me to my next question. What do you think are the main pillars of having a strong, high performing team?
Uh, Number one, from my head, engagement is what do I mean by engagement? Leader connecting the needs of the people. In cases, it could be
Hmm.
their family, right? So
Yeah.
equity, more. You brought up gender, so might be connecting to a um, um, with the same stresses, the ability be paid less sum of a male, right? Entitlement should be gone with the dynamic. Good leader will take not easy to fix in but it, it is before I fixed it in Asia, but it took a few because you don't have the money, but you can do it. It did it, okay, and working with me did it. I think that's one example. So number one, in engaging with your people, tool
Hmm.
to build teamwork. And I'll tell everybody watching this, it works when you're trying to build engagement. And number one is okay. So go in and start and telling people what to do. You, you start by asking how they
Hmm.
feel, need, and
Yep.
asking them what kind of you in order
Hmm.
for you to perform at your potential. And then number two
Yep.
is L, to listen carefully, and then the third one is then you can take. But what I in going into a company, I apply ALA to the questions. Tell me 3 things for me, Bret, to do. And if I then Nadia, what are 3 things in exchange? Negotiate and have a discussion should be with an open mind. It's like anything in games, it's all about really connecting with needs. You have needs as an employee, and, and our job can eat together. These can eat together. Then I team. So that's how I would kind of the core components and elite team.
And is there, like, let's say, what would be the actionable steps that like managers out there or leaders can do to implement those pillars within their companies?
Yeah. So one. Okay. So number one, just do it. Teaching conversations. So for all the men, so no time like till Monday. Okay, set a one-on-one meeting with, and take them to lunch, take them to coffee, do what conversation about how are you feeling. Tell me you need to do your job better. 3 things, right? And write them down. You might hear people, when I do this with people, not 12 things.
Yeah, just
a lot.
Like,
There's
it's not a limited number.
It's a long list, and we can negotiate that later. If you're doing that, then what do I want from you? So please have that conversation. Number 1, but I'll give this to elite performers, and it's a very simple formula on prepare. You know what your everything as a manager. People on your team that do healthcare. By the way, Nadia, you know a lot of let's say that I'm up a company and it's an entrepreneur that I want to get into healthcare. Somebody like Nadia, because she So number one, you are prepared, but you need to know what you're talking about.
What you're
like
talking
Apple
about.
is to smartphone really, really well. And so you prepare and you put things in. Trust that preparation. Trust yourself.
Exactly.
That's the different. What will ultimately be elite, just good performance. And here's why: in the real world, we're in conditions. So a lot of times you hear people talk 5 things. The manager. Okay, well, I fully support that. Sometimes people will do 4, and then the pandemic or financial crisis comes, and then guess what they have to do the first 4 in. So to avoid all of that with, and basically prepare for any situation and then trust what they're, and then number
Exactly.
three, because you can then, okay, if you trust your preparation, you can, and then you can move quickly along with the change.
Yeah, I definitely agree that intrinsic, not intuition, but trust yourself, trust your capabilities, and be prepared and agile at the same time. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. You have to be super focused, but also have in your peripheral vision, an eye for changing environment so you can adjust accordingly. Yeah.
Well said. I
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah.
then you
And what does
just said it.
yeah, and what does like I'm referring here to Simon Sinek. He's like into like leadership and so on. It was interesting this week. I watched one of his videos, and his take was like how performance versus trust. Would you pick a very high performer that is low on trust? Or would you go with second tier performer that's high on trust? So what's your take? I thought I gotta ask Brett this one.
Yeah, too. I don't even need to think about it because I think the thing naughty is teamwork and that trust, right? It's like we spoke about earlier. It's like brushing. It is something, and trust is the same one. I,
Yeah.
I understand that not perfect, and not every team and all this other stuff. It
Yeah.
is trust is something needs to establish as a core, because people, especially accountable for trust. A few minutes ago, you brought up something, okay, and a leader. If I go back to my corporate leader and a few levels down, and they were a safety issue. I first of all, number two, I would look at from that person's boss,
Hmm.
and if I found out thing, they okay, because automatic, Nadia. So the point is that if leadership is not held accountable, then you're basically in the crime.
Hmm.
Leadership doesn't fix it. Who's going to fix it?
Yeah.
So I think that I take time. It does take a strong hand. Sometimes you have to remove leaders and they're complicit, and if they don't,
Hmm.
a lot of people think, well, you if they do something wrong,
Hmm.
wrong if they don't fit safety culture.
I see.
Yeah,
So yeah, you
yeah.
tapped into it a little bit. Can you elaborate even more? How do you build trust within a team? Because I think it's super important for not only
It
retention,
it is.
for productivity, for amplifying the team effort and the results.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how to build trust. Number
Hmm.
one, a manager is going to make sure they put their person in a position to win. What that means
Hmm.
is that health care and, and Adrian might be good at, okay, but if I have Adrian, uh, that's a Adrian won't perform well. The team. So
Yeah.
so how do we? I have if if you think about Adrian in a healthcare role, applied for
Hmm.
that role. let's say, or doing well, he's not going to trust. So I, as a leader, understand Adrian that what inspires. I need to probably trust as a leader to move financial, but happen unless I, as the leader, take the initiative to actually might be afraid to think I'm in the wrong job. I'm
and
just nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, and that circles
Go ahead.
back to being, yeah, and that circles back to be having that psychological safety environment where you can be vulnerable, that you feel empowered, that if there is a problem, you bring it up, you don't shove it under the rug or before it becomes, worse. So, and I've always thought about how do we balance vulnerability as a leader, because we think of it as a lot of people think of it as a negative, but it could actually be a good thing. So can you comment on that?
And I through my own told you earlier, it took me 19 years. I wasn't any good at leadership, and I had left years. I was to a Citibank for 19 years, Asia Pacific for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then I go to work for K, and the reason I was that it was an opportunity for 1,000 people, and I got it was in London. It was a country, but it's based in London. People were not responding to me. Things I had done for 19 years all of a sudden. So actually, fortunately, I had at the time that hired me to dinner and had a conversation with me about my great management skills, but very green skills. So we spoke with me, and with roughly, I started to develop components of that. Big part of that was exposing those, and I'll give you an example in leadership, and where I was. Management is all about compliance,
Processes, APIs.
discipline, job done. Leadership very much this, so the vulnerability. So maybe leader works that people feel about the job. Empathy. Okay, these types of things, check the box type of things as well. A lot of it in your smartphone, beautiful piece of hardware on, and attempt to make them card. It's not going to work. Leadership is that SIM card. So for me, vulnerability, the software, and so I work programmed and conditioned to turn out to be what amazing leader that I actually in transforming culture. As I started to develop this, came a SIM card. Basically, everything worked well together.
That is awesome. Yeah, you reminded me of an example when I was a director at the University of Pittsburgh, and I thought it was something just normal that I did once a year or twice a year. I would invite the whole team to my house and we cooked together. I didn't make anything out of it, and it really gave us a really great environment outside of work without the restrictions of the public facade to connect. I didn't make anything out of it. Years later, I applied for an executive MBA in healthcare. And in one of the references, one of the things that came was that opportunity gave the clinicians a way to connect with each other outside of the clinical world, outside of the research world, because they didn't have, the HIPAA or what have you, that they can be themselves. So providing that as a leader, for your team to connect perhaps outside of work, not necessarily to become best friends, but at least to connect to different facets of their personalities.
That's a great way. That's into more of a social where people can relax a bit and that type of thing as well. Especially, I'd like to highlight that's especially important in right. I spent quite a bit, and that is in those two cultures aspect is incredible trust, and it can in Japan it takes a long time to do.
Yeah,
You get when you is unbelievable. It's important to understand
that
the
is great.
culture. Yeah,
The cultural differences. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
yeah.
from your 30 plus years, what would be the common thing you see teams and organizations struggle with, or a common mistake they make when it comes to um, building and maintaining high team performance?
Putting profit people before the needs of the
People.
people, and it is a very a Wall Street of mindset.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, I've also when you have great leaders, well, the needs of their people, make sure that the village analogy. If a great leader does that, then
Hmm.
they're going to generate. If I have a mindset, I'm going to have take me a bit longer, but they're going to, and I'm also not going to have suits for discrimination and of that.
Hmm.
If I build,
That's awesome. Yeah, in business, there's like this window that you need to balance. It's like the ecosystem where you are at your best performance slash efficiency and still balancing the
right,
profit slash the people's needs. And I found it interesting that in order to be competitive you need to stay in that window. If you focus too much on efficiency you may lose your agility to innovate, and if
right.
you focus too much on innovation your processes are not streamlined to make a profit and you go out of business because of that. So it's a tricky balance, I would say. One
I
of my favorite
think you're right.
quotes, yeah, one of my
Yeah,
favorite quotes is by Richard Branson. He's like, people think that I need to take care of my customers. That's my priority. He said, take care of your people, your employees, and your employees will take care of your customers. So, and train
yeah,
them well so they can go anywhere, and
yeah.
treat them well so they don't have to. This,
Absolutely. Give
yeah,
them what
this
they
way,
need.
give them what they need and they will stay. And that's a message to, I know it's tough economic times and sometimes theory is not as easy as practice, but keep that in mind, especially in the face of the great, resignation, that it's a serious question to for leaders out there to think about to retain talent, because we are in the middle of a talent war. Once you find,
We are. The reasons why I focus on is that I I under a lot of this stuff to do. Are talking about it takes time, it takes focus and sacrificing a
mhm,
bit of short-term greater gain because you're people last. That's basically what you and I are people first, and
mhm,
you still have to perform. Then right and there's no one of the focus on elite performer, and I believe an elite performer, not the entire team, because but you need people that can get the job done no matter what you're working on, or talking about, and building that's going to fix all of these problems that you and I are addressing. Are deep problems that can take 8 to 5 years to fix.
Oh, wow.
So you get them, and they can help deliver. You're fixing these issues. I do what I do.
Awesome. So that takes me to a question that I really wanted to ask someone who deals an expert with elite performance. And as Malcolm Gladwell said, that in order to be an expert in anything, you need to put in 10,000 hours or so. And in a lot of technical fields, including healthcare, doctors or specialists, they put maybe 20,000 hours before they get to practice their specialty. So if we look at the carrot and the stick, what gets rewarded gets done. So throughout their training, you are super focused on the technical thing. And then you get to a leadership position, and there is a disparity between the technical and the leadership abilities. Can you comment what can leaders within the, not necessarily just healthcare, even other technical fields, do to kind of close that gap between the very high level of technical skills and maybe moderate level in leadership skills?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much an art. The technical part and the part that is the bear to do to be competent. The leadership part is everybody, in my opinion. I shared my story. It's to even realize I didn't have that part that you're. I don't know if I think a few banks, but I had the technical part done. I wound up. I was a technical expert, anything about leadership, and yet pointed early within a few years of starting my, all of a sudden a manager. And okay, but I got leading as I spoke about. So I think that it's different. Question is, how can I develop leadership? Taught to me in the technical. How do I? Here's how you do it, leader. Okay, you read this, that your job is to ensure you're leading each person at their potential. They feel good about it. Good about that. That's Bret Packard's leadership. Okay, now your potential is different than my potential is different than potential, etc. So every person is different potential. So my repeat it again for your viewers is to environment, a support environment. Each person can perform it, and they feel good. And if you do that, and your energy, then you're going to be a great leader.
That is awesome. That's awesome. I'm curious. That was a great answer. I'm curious. Have you came across a situation that turned around completely during your 30 plus years, and that came to transforming the performance of the team? I'd love to learn more about it.
Yeah, I have a couple of examples there, and the example that I'm in response to that. That was my assignment in 2008 to the copper, which is the big commodities in Zambia.
Yep.
The price of copper after the on the back of that, it had a loan portfolio of 30 million pounds probably up. It cost loss to the country. The largest bank in the country of JP basically posting a loan. So there was a change, and I got a phone call. I was in at the time. And asked me to go down, take it up, which I did. Story short, not a week, and it was a year. And during we completely transferred upside down, and employees were angry at us and was angry at us because they had raised and all sorts of hard. And so one of the that I did, the first thing I did was I rebelled in Zambia, went over the country, and I did ALA I asked, listen, I met with the union. Everybody got a lot of they said, and I remember there were 180 ideas. We couldn't do all of those. So, and there were 400 people at our meeting, and I walked through. We could do what we couldn't, and I asked. So this is what I'm going to do for you. I said, now I want to know what you're going to do for me. And basically, the village, and 12 months later, our client status scores were the highest. We returned to restore. We had was up employee in IDs. It had gone from the just within a year months out.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was even better. That's the transformation in Zambia.
That is awesome. Yeah, we can go over the second example some other time, unless you feel like sharing the second example too.
The second example happened during I was part a little bit one of 5 managing directors, and his boss in the year 2000 BBC the whistle I don't know the dog watchers. It was 60 minutes in the U.S. and it was called implanted reporters. These cameras on their, and they were yelling for not making their sales number. Fortunately, to the team when this happened, they had basically removed the new leadership coming in. Took 30,000 people. That one took but we completely transformed and removed this culture and replaced it with one. And so that one involved 30,000 people.
Oh, that is awesome. That's great. Yeah, that is very fascinating examples there. For a lot of our listeners here or viewers are either in early stages or not very large companies, so startups. if they are like CEOs listening, or senior level executives, they have this opportunity to set it up right, what would you advise them to take into account so they can see the fruit of that strong foundation a couple or few years down the line?
Right. No, deliver what you're promising. So whatever your is your unique selling proposition, sure that you can deliver about things that you can't deliver. Think about that of having more than one customer. You need to think about, okay, am I going to be able to handle can be ruined much, right? So you want to make sure these these is this is as good as gold. Put an adversity over your strategies. So, but before you hit the goal, think about double digit for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what will happen to my if there's a that happens, which looks imminent. Things have basically, and now they're a rad way to slow it. You can mark my words. This is significant damage and bruise global economy, because not all of them, but most of the major other on these, they follow the lead. This is a midterm U.S., so there's politics right now.
Yeah, around the corner.
And so businesses are these realities, and not putting a 5-year out on their business of what if since you do. That has to be your planning, this adversity. It's not the pandemic that like worlds. So I would advise, Nadia, is what are things that I give entrepreneurs.
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Brett. Let me see if is there any burning question you would love or expected me to ask that I didn't, that you want to share with the audience?
And why don't you look if there's anything from the audience?
Let's see if we have anything from the audience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Greetings. We have a lot of greetings from. Thank you, Katia, and thanks for being here, Asma too. There's a lot of hellos, and let's see. We have if this is a question. Very constructive subject. We learn every day. Recognize. Oh, thank you, Malik. I appreciate you. And I'm going through the comments here. Welcome from Pakistan. And another one from Pakistan. It must be like late in the evening in Pakistan. So no questions here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we covered most of the issues that could be related to high performance. I'm curious, what's the frequency of elite performance in the teams that you've dealt with? Are we talking 10% of the team? What percentage of elite performance you've seen?
I think it's less than that, 10%. But elite performers, what are we talking about? The first place, not necessarily with company. I think it's very dangerous to look at your company. I think you've got to look at the very best people. You're not going to find many. They're not in abundance point, but these again, if you get an elite performer, you and I spoke a lot about
Yep.
teamwork, and by themselves, the substitute for the team. That's to be a team.
Yeah.
In order to be successful, it right. But an elite to bring in an elite, pay them well, can cover a lot of performance for you while laying the foundation. You had some great ideas in this press. Um, you really foster. It takes time. So an elite performer in aim optimize, then you can build an elite team. Get the basics of teamwork down.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Since we're talking about elite performances, and you want to tell the audience what you do and how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. I have a very person that of roughly 24, from spanning, ranging from the C down to managers in private banks of the world, and the person that people, Bret, I've but when the global financial things fell apart, there's all sorts of stuff. Can you work with me resilience in this so that I can perform? I want so I work with people during a recession, people a COVID lockdown, perform sleet or snow, right? And I make them weather to my experience. We didn't cover all of them, but talk about here on this my financial crisis in the late 90s in Thailand, 9/11, the aftermath in Japan, and around the world. That in my industry at the time, financial crisis, and now the pandemic, a bigger recession will help them see. And I write to get hold of me is follow me on LinkedIn and see what I talk about, what I write. Everything I post on is from that I handwritten journals that years on my and I may write a thing that it may not have a different experience than mine, and that I'm just kind of sharing what I actually rolled in, and it inspires many people.
Oh, it's definitely very inspiring, and I've learned a lot from your original content on LinkedIn. So I highly recommend, if you're not following Bret, to follow him and get in touch with him for all elite performance needs. Thank you so much, Bret. It's been a real pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for the past 6 months, and I'm so glad we made up time to talk. Again, I'm Dr. Nadia Boutawi. I help women entrepreneurs, empower them to become leaders so they can grow their businesses. I think there is a huge missed opportunity if we don't put women that are responsible for 75% of purchasing power, not only for themselves, their kids, their elderly parents, especially in healthcare. We need more women that are empowered to drive businesses forward. And that's what I do. And for that, I'm putting together a membership to support women long term, not a workshop that's few months and gone, but to be there for them when they need it the most through their entrepreneurial journey. So if you are a woman entrepreneur in the healthcare tech space or wanna be in the healthcare tech space, you can go ahead and register for the membership for women entrepreneurs. It's on my LinkedIn profile, so you'll be the first to know when it's available to support you. And with that, thank you so much for listening. Any last burning words, Brett, before we close?
People, every human being believes in the failed person. I don't buy it. I don't believe that that's born in this on this is born to fail. If you were ever, the message I have, if you're ever feeling just not, I'm not able to, the Brett and Nadia talked about and just go, you have to start with something. So just the replay of this and take one thing you said and,
Exactly,
and just
exactly.
and make a mistake, correct it as you go, but don't
Yep, exactly.
that you're disappointed in yourself. Have that resiliency because you with that
Exactly.
resiliency.
Everybody
So
is born confident. Yeah, every single person is born
yes,
confident. A baby before they move from crawling to walking, they fall 70 times an hour. They don't give up. They're not going to say, "Oh, that's it. I'm just happy crawling." You get up and you try again and again and again. And everybody's confident. The problem is, as we grow or for life circumstances, we lose touch or access to that confidence, and you need to reconnect to that. And I think inner work is the first thing you need to do to tap into your resilience, to tap into your confidence, to your agility, and to your growth mindset. Because the biggest block
right.
is internal. And for that, when I asked women, when I wanted to help women entrepreneurs, I asked the community on LinkedIn, what are the top 3 obstacles or problems you face? And the number one was imposter syndrome. And that came not only from women, but men as well. So I
Right.
put together a free guide how to overcome imposter syndrome, become confident so you can grow as a person, you can grow your business, you can grow your community. But we really need to tap into our power, internal powers, before we can, make our dreams happen.
Hmm.
And with that, it's been a pleasure, Brett. I'm really honored. And thank you so much, the audience, for watching live or on the recorded session. If you have any questions later, you can put them in the chat. I make sure we can check them later. And with that, have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank